Hi, my name is Danielle. I'm also known as the Breastfeeding Mentor, and I've teamed up with Nessa Organics today to talk to you about breastfeeding after having a cesarean section. I'm also going to share 3 tips from my book, Self-Care, the Breastfeeding Edition, which is out now. So I gave birth to my son via an emergency section after 78 hours of being in labour, after I'd been induced because he was 2 weeks past his due date. After labouring for so long, I developed sepsis and the section was inevitable. Needless to say, it was far from the drug-free, completely natural water birth that I had planned for. In hindsight, I really wish that I had explored every possibility and just known a few things about how having a section might affect my breastfeeding journey, particularly in the early days. As a result of having been born by caesarean section, my boy was super sleepy for the first 24 hours of his life, so much so that he could not stay awake long enough to latch onto me. As you can imagine, that was incredibly worrying for a first-time mum, and I was lucky enough to be able to have access to a lactation consultant on the ward where he was born. And so with her help, me, my fiance and I painstakingly hand expressed my colostrum into those little syringes and fed him using those for the first 24 hours or so of his life. Thankfully, he suddenly woke up and seemed to have a burst of energy around day 2 after being born. He latched on voraciously and he's pretty much been there ever since. I think if I had known though beforehand that it was completely normal for my boy to be super sleepy after a very long labour and after the drugs that I had had during his labour because of the section, then I might have been a little bit less anxious about him struggling to latch on in those first few days, and I wouldn't have worried that he would be fed via syringe for the rest of his life. Another thing that I just didn't know to expect was just how difficult it was to physically turn and lift my son out of his crib next to my bed and get into a comfortable position without causing myself pain and discomfort. So one tip that I would recommend is firstly not to feel afraid or ashamed or embarrassed at all for asking for help to just lift your baby up. It's hard in the early days, it's really hard, and you deserve all the help and support that you can get. One tip that really helped me was to nurse my boy in the rugby hold position. So I recommend using cushions or pillows to support your little one's body, and then you position them so that their head is right here in front of your boob and their body almost wraps around yours either side, and then it's supported by a pillow underneath, and then you're just guiding their head to your breast. So there's no pressure at all at the front and on your stomach or your wound. And yeah, that was a really, really great tip for me in the early days. I found that to be really comfortable. It can be difficult enough to drink water, even when you haven't just given birth and had major surgery. And so one thing that really helped me was to keep a big glass or bottle of water beside my bed each night on my bedside table. And then I would drink that through the night as I was nursing, but also first thing in the morning. And I'd have a whole one first thing before I got out of bed, just to make sure that even if the rest of the day was a challenge, I'd had at least one really big glass of water first thing in the morning. My second tip from the book is tip number 14, and it's 4-7-8 breathing. This is a form of diaphragmatic breathing, which is scientifically proven to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the system responsible for activating our fight and flight responses, our rest and digest reflexes, and just helping us to feel calm and relaxed instead of really anxious and highly strung. I definitely had a real sense of feeling out of control and like I wasn't empowered in my body immediately after my section. And I hope that you don't feel that way, but for me, I really struggled just to appreciate my body as it was because my labour hadn't quite gone how I had envisaged. And so 4-7-8 breathing from my yoga and meditation practices really helped me just to feel calm and confident and yeah, just to take a moment when things got tough in the early days. It's a technique that I still draw on now if I'm struggling to sleep at night or if I just need a moment because my toddler is having a meltdown. I'm going to demonstrate the technique a few times now. The first time I'll count. The second time I'll do it without counting. Please feel free to join in at any point. Okay, so to start 4-7-8 breathing, as the name suggests, you're going to inhale for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 7 seconds, and then exhale for 8 seconds. So to get started, exhale completely, then inhale for the count of 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath for the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale for the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll do that one more time without counting. I'll demonstrate the breathing as well. Okay, so empty your lungs completely. Inhale. Oh, I love that technique so much. Every time I take that exhalation, I just feel my whole body soften and yeah, just feel a little bit more at calm and peace with the world. My third and final tip from the book today is tip number 21, an attitude of gratitude. I really struggled in the first few weeks and months postpartum with my lack of mobility. For various reasons, it felt like it took forever before I could walk around comfortably, push my baby in his pushchair, wear him in a sling, or drive. And so I really felt like I was very trapped and just stuck within the four walls of our home. And actually, in hindsight, it was me not accepting my circumstances as they were that made that time period even more difficult. And so I started to journal around 3 or 4 months postpartum and making a list every day of 20 things that I was grateful for really helped me. If you are ready to weep happy tears, then I recommend counting those things on your tiny newborn baby's fingers and toes. It is the most beautiful, meditative and uplifting practice. And it's great for just changing your mindset if you are feeling a little bit stuck, a little bit trapped postpartum, and actually just recognizing all of the wonderful things that you do have in your life, even if, maybe 1 or 2 things aren't exactly as you had expected them to be. A massive thank you from me and from Nessa Organics for watching and listening to this video. I really hope that you found it useful. If you have, then you can buy your copy of the book via my website. It's www.thebreastfeedingmentor.com. It's also available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle now, and I hope that it will help you to breastfeed on your own terms for as long as you choose and not a day sooner. Thank you so much once again. Take care.